Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to PASMA's Tower Week webinar. My name is John Bungay. I'm currently the Vice Chairman of PASMA, and I've been asked to talk on the subject of access towers, packed with potential. During the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about the evolution of towers. We'll explore the enormous potential offered by current day access tower systems, and then we'll touch briefly on how that potential can be unlocked safely. At the end of it, as Martin's already indicated, there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. So, the origins of prefabricated access towers predate most of our assumptions, as you can see from this picture. Prefabricated access towers used as machines of war are recorded as far back as the 11th century BC. So for those of us who think we've been in the tower industry for a long time, we ain't seen nothing yet. But on a more serious note, the type of prefabricated aluminium towers that we're all familiar with today can be traced back to post-war America. They found their way into the UK and European market in the 1960s, very late 50s and through the 1960s, but it was really during the 1970s that we saw a real growth in their widespread use. It was also at this time that the UK rental industry was really in expansion mode, and I think it was the availability of towers for rental that really accelerated their uptake. Once tradesmen had used these new, as they were then, lightweight towers, there was no turning back. It was very, very clear that these towers offered distinct advantages. They were faster, lighter, and safer than other available access solutions at the time. So, whilst the general style and configuration of today's towers is fundamentally similar to those of the 1970s, we can nevertheless see that towers have evolved measurably in terms of their versatility and, most importantly, safety for the user. Integral ladder access is now the norm, double guard railing is standard, platforms today all have anti-slip surfaces, and whilst platforms every 4 meters is the maximum spacing allowable in EN 1004, most towers supplied today come with platforms every 2 meters. Notwithstanding all of these improvements, though, the greatest safety improvements have really come in the changes in build methodology. For those of us who've been in the tower industry for some time, we can probably remember back to the days when it was usual to see a guy up on top of a tower, straddling a frame with his legs intertwined through the rungs, hauling up what in those days was perhaps the only platform right to the top of the tower. Those days are gone, and I think the biggest advances, as we've said, have come in this build methodology. 2005 saw the move to the almost universal adoption of the through the trapdoor or 3T build method, and this ensured that the operative building the tower was never exposed on an unprotected platform, either during assembly or dismantling. This was in itself a great advance in safety, but I think more recently we've seen the introduction of the use of advanced guardrails, or AGRs, and this methodology enables the guardrail to be installed from the full protection of the already guardrailed platform below. So the user then ascends to the next platform with the guardrails already in place. So the terminology advanced guardrail comes from the guardrail being positioned in advance of the need for the user to ascend to the next platform. The equal level or equal measure of safety is provided in the descent mode as well, in that the user comes down before the guardrails are removed. So this advanced guardrail technology, it really today represents the state of the art and is considered to be the ultimate safe build method. So moving on, we're going to take a look now at just how versatile and flexible aluminium towers are. We will if mine will move. And we're going to take a quick look firstly at what we refer to as standard towers. Standard towers are defined as those covered by EN 1004. That is, mobile towers with platform heights above 2.5 meters and up to 8 meters out of doors or 12 meters indoors. Standard towers are generally available in a multitude of frame widths. They come with numerous platform lengths and with various different means of access, either built-in ladders, which is very usual, climbing frames, stairways, hook-in stair ladders, but always with a safe means of access. Now, in addition, most of the major tower system manufacturers also provide a substantial array of additional componentry and of tower derivatives, all within this standard tower definition, and this is sufficient to enable the vast majority of access tasks to be undertaken using standard towers. So if we take a look now at some of these derivatives, they include the picture on the left, what we refer to as folding room scaffolds, which are ideal for indoor low-level use because they're light, they're highly maneuverable, and at the height you can see here, clearly they can be built safely from the ground. In the middle, you see an example of a derivative we refer to as a confined space tower, typically built with very, very narrow frames and with short platforms. These towers are designed to be used in very tight apertures, such as lift shafts. The picture here shows a portal frame on one side, allowing entry from what may be the only way into the tower, if, for example, it is being built in a lift shaft, and then the more conventional ladder access frames are on the other side. Another derivative, which there isn't a picture of, but is very similar, would be a staircase tower. Similar because they are often also very compact in width. Staircase tower, though, would typically feature portal frames on both sides so that people can get up and down the staircase underneath the tower whilst it's being built and whilst it's in use. Finally, another derivative, a much more recent one, is what we refer to as a one-man tower system. These one-man tower systems are typically towers that are what I would call ultra-compact, as narrow as 600 millimeters, so they'll fit through a standard pedestrian doorway. All the components can be stacked into a handy trolley formed from the folding base section on one of the platforms. And the intent of the tower is that it can be built safely by one man, utilizing either hooks or brackets integral to the tower, so that the componentry can be loaded up as the tower is built, and the user doesn't need to keep returning to the ground whilst he's going through the build process. And then lastly, whilst we're talking about standard towers, we shouldn't overlook the fact that they are not all manufactured from aluminium. Tower systems of the type that we are referring to today are also available in composite materials, such as GRP, glass reinforced polymer. These products offer distinct benefits for very specific applications. GRP towers are electrically non-conductive, therefore they're ideally suited to use in the presence of live electrical apparatus. GRP towers are also chemically inert, and therefore they can be used in clean rooms, food processing plants and the like, whilst their resistance to corrosion means they're better suited to cope with, for example, the high sulfur content atmosphere at power stations and other processing plants. So we can see from the pictures that we've just looked at that the vast array of standard access towers that are available today will provide fast, light and safe, but also very cost-effective solutions for a great many work at height situations. As we say, these towers really are packed with potential. But it's not the whole story, because there's another dimension that we need to explore if we're going to understand the true potential that prefabricated tower systems can offer. So moving on fairly swiftly, so we don't run short on time, this dimension takes us into the world of what we refer to as advanced configurations. These are towers and tower structures built in accordance with 1139 Part 6. This deals with towers outside of the scope of EN 1004, but essentially built from the same components that will be used in EN 1004 towers. Examples include structures like this. Excuse me, this is a stepped tower in use for undertaking works over a swimming pool. The overhang above the pool necessitated that one end of the tower be placed in the pool with the other end on the narrow pool surround. Stabilization was provided by the additional buttress to the tower sitting in the pool. This provided a very fast and cost-effective solution for the client for a number of reasons. Firstly, the pool could not economically be drained to undertake this work. The project time window was extremely tight, and the pool floor loading would not accommodate heavy access equipment. So access towers provided an ideal solution. And forgive me, I'm going to move through these. The next shot shows a very impressive cantilever structure. In fact, it's a double, what we refer to as a double-sided cantilever. This was used to gain access to the roof of the building over the protruding ground floor porch on the right-hand side, and on the other side over the confines of the property boundary. Towers were picked for this job because ground conditions wouldn't support heavy equipment, and again, project speed was of the essence. Right, these two shots show examples of very tall tower structures, clearly beyond the scope of EN 1004. On the left is a 24-meter high tower structure, or double link tower structure. This was used for window replacement works. Structural ties were used at 4-meter intervals. The tower was built off a mezzanine floor, which you can just see in the bottom of the shot. This mezzanine floor wasn't strong enough to support other heavier forms of scaffolding or access equipment. And the access to the site was extremely tight, which precluded bringing in any large equipment, for example, the use of a large piece of powered equipment. On the right is a design for a 16-meter high freestanding, fully mobile tower structure, which was designed for use in an area, again, with very limited access. So the small size of the individual components of a tower system were light enough and compact enough to bring into the premises on which this tower was used. So in both applications, access towers proved that they were suitable for providing a lightweight, fast, and cost-effective solution. All right, we'll take a quick look now at a couple of quite interesting jobs. This is a very complex bridging tower structure using both bridging beams and end-to-end bridge decks to provide very high-level access to both the walls and the ceiling in a cathedral. The crypt was located below the ground floor of the cathedral, and therefore the floor loading that the cathedral floor could take was minimal, so heavier forms of scaffolding were not even a consideration. The floor of the cathedral was also described as precious and with immovable objects. It had a lot of very historic and very valuable engravings in it, tombstones and the like, and also heavyweight objects which couldn't be moved. So the structure had to be built around the periphery and it had to span that floor. So project time was short, speed of assembly and dismantling was key, and lightweight floor loadings, all adding up again to make aluminium towers really the only practicable solution. See if the next one comes up. Okay, this is quite an it was a very interesting project. It's quite some years ago now, but it still remains quite a stunning photo, I think. This project required access to the ceiling above the swimming pool in the sports centre. but they needed access the whole length of the pool. However, once again, the project time was short and the pool could not economically be emptied whilst the project was carried out. So the solution was to build this stunning, I think, 20-metre long bridge structure, which has an unsupported clear span of 16 metres, i.e. the entire width of the pool. The total deck area is 20 metres in width, 5 metres in depth. The entire structure is mobile, meaning that it could be moved progressively along the full length of the pool. That enabled the work to be carried out safely, quickly, and cost effectively because it obviated the need to scaffold out the entire building. Okay, facade structures also fall into the realms of advanced configurations, and this is a fairly classic example of a facade structure. This one, the project required the provision of working platform levels, 4 working platform levels at 2-metre intervals. This was used for the installation of both insulation and cladding on the interior of this building. So again, speed of assembly was key to the selection of equipment for this job. Yes, I'm duty bound to include this one. This is an aluminium tower facade structure used for the refurbishment of the PASMA headquarters in Glasgow. As they say, other forms of access are available, but clearly would not be selected on this occasion. Right, another and probably overall one of the most interesting examples, and I hope you can see this clearly from the pictures you're looking at. This is what we refer to as a large deck structure or a birdcage scaffold. This type of structure is formed by linking towers end-to-end in one direction and using bridge beams and infill decks in the other direction. And that enables very large uninterrupted work platforms or crash decks to be constructed. The application that we're looking at here shows the deck being used to install wiring, insulation, and then a suspended ceiling in a large auditorium. The whole deck structure was mobile and is mounted on rails, which I think you can just see in the front of the picture, allowing it to be moved and giving access to the entire auditorium without the need to scaffold it completely, which would be the more conventional approach. Considerations in the selection of equipment for this job, there was limited access to get equipment into the auditorium. The structure needed to be lightweight as it was being built on a suspended floor. And again, short project duration required very fast installation and dismantling. The client was very pleased with the outcome. This movable deck was a very cost-effective solution because, again, as with the swimming pool job, by making it fully mobile, the contractor was able to provide an alternative to fully decking out the entire auditorium. So I hope that those shots have given you a good insight into some of the more advanced structures that can be built using aluminium tower systems. And I hope you found something of interest in one or more of these advanced configurations. Hope also that it's helped to show just what aluminium towers really are capable of. With luck, this will have also whetted your appetite for maybe how you could use access tower systems for your next project in a more constructive and imaginative way. So all we have to do now is take a quick look at how can we unlock this potential safely. Okay. Both standard access towers and the advanced configurations that we've just been looking at these days are used very widely by a huge diversity of industries, everything from aviation, rail, petrochem, power generation, utilities, heating and ventilating, painting, insulation, facilities management, and every type of fixing and finishing company you can think of. As we've seen, these tower structures are far more than just basic platforms for use on construction sites. As such, their safe use requires appropriate training, and PASMA is the industry association dedicated to the provision of safe access. PASMA offers a wide range of access tower training courses, both for users and managers. The PASMA card is universally recognized and accepted as providing definitive evidence of competence in the assembly and use of aluminium access towers. So we would suggest that to unlock that potential safely, if it is standard tower build you're looking for, look for the PASMA card. Make sure that the users operating these towers are PASMA card carrying. And if you're moving into the world of advanced configuration, then turn to a PASMA hire and assembly member whose operatives have been trained on the PASMA Towers for Riggers course. This 5-day course provides advanced training in the safe assembly of the types of structures that we've been looking at. So used correctly, I think there is no question but that access towers do provide faster, lighter, and safer access solutions than pretty much any other form of access. They truly are packed with potential. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, John. Thanks very much, Don. Very, very happy with those presentations, but let's see if there's any questions there. I'll switch the presentation off and zoom out a bit so that we can see all of us. Well, I'll make sure that we at least can see the specialists. There we go. And also make sure that they all can hear us all three. Okay. While you were speaking, John and Don too, some questions have already been come through, so I'll move to the first question that came in. Well, first I got Gary to say that he liked Don's presentation. Whenever I come across H-frames, he says, in hire companies, I always tell them not to hire them out as they are unsafe. Not all listen, but most do think through, which I think is brilliant. So thanks, Don, and thanks, Gary, for that comment. That is pretty useful. Now, the first question that came through, and I think John already did mention this, but there was a question about the GRP fiberglass towers, and the question that came, and I don't know if you are able to answer that, or maybe Don, how safe are they now, and how do they compare in the safety of aluminium towers?
I think the first thing to think about is that those that are available through PASMA members will meet the same standard as an aluminium tower. Even the GRP tower will still meet the EN 1004 tower, so structurally it'll be very similar. Well, it'll be identical. It'll have the same, meet the same performance requirements as an aluminium tower.
Okay. Well, I hope that answers your question, Joel. And the next question that came in was from Ray, and that says I'll zoom this a bit in, I can see it there. On the low-level training for podiums and low-level room scaffolds, will there be a directive to be fitting toe boards in future training courses? Question.
Toe boards are there to prevent the fall of materials, and in terms of whether you need to fit toe boards to a low-level platform, it depends what you're doing. If you're doing something where you've got materials or tools on the platform, which if they fell, could they injure someone? Could they roll off and injure someone? It will all depend really on what you're doing and where you're doing it as to whether you need to fit those toe boards. So as always, it's down to your risk assessment. In certain low-level applications, it's quite difficult to fit toe boards. Obviously, if you're in a situation where, for instance, you're getting onto the platform by sitting on it and then swinging your legs up and then putting the guardrails in place, fitting the toe boards can be quite tricky. Sometimes you have to do it if the job requires it. Again, it's all down to risk assessment.
Okay, thanks, Don. So hopefully, Ray, that will answer your question there. Now, this is a very technical question, and I don't know if it is really possible to answer this. This is a question from Holly, Danny, and Ian, and that is basically, what would the load be that could be put on a cantilever structure? How long is a piece of string, Don?
Yeah, that all depends. It's a very, very complex calculation that's carried out by the designer. It's not something that you can do. You have to refer to the either the user instructions that are supplied with the tower, which will tell you the maximum loading, or you need to, if it's an individual design, an individual structure, the designer will calculate it out and he will put it on the information that is supplied with the tower. It's not something that you can, the layman can calculate themselves. It's far too complicated.
Okay. Thanks, Don. Anything you wanted to add to that, John?
No, I'd just echo that sentiment, because the cantilevers can be various shapes and sizes. We saw an example in the pictures that I showed of a double cantilever and quite a large platform. The loading calculations, as Don said, are quite complex. It isn't just about counterbalancing the cantilever at the top with a compensating load on the opposite side at the bottom, because the structure itself places certain stresses and strains on the core tower unit, and all of that needs to be calculated, which the manufacturer or a qualified system designer with all the manufacturer's data for that particular tower system could calculate.
Okay, thanks. Holly, Danny, Ian, hope that answered your question. Now, Joel had another question. He said, can you build the configuration of towers being spoken about at the moment with PASMA's qualification, or would operatives need further training? I think that this was to do with some of the more advanced, and I think the answer was already given in your last slide.
I hope so, yeah. But in case it wasn't, it didn't come across clearly, the standard towers, all of the standard tower configurations that we looked at in the first part of the presentation could be built with the standard PASMA card, which somebody would receive having completed the Towers for Users course. The advanced configurations are exactly the type of structure for which the Towers for Riggers training equips people, in addition to the operatives who would have qualified via the Towers for Riggers course. In addition to that qualification, the company erecting the towers would also require structural design drawings from the system, probably in all probability from the system manufacturer, together with a method statement of how the whole thing should be put together. But yes, that's the qualification that will be needed in order to build a structure like that.
At the moment, PASMA is in the process of relaunching its standard advanced courses. So that will be things for standard
bridge beams,
cantilever towers, bridge beams, but it won't be for those very, very advanced structures that you saw in some of those photographs. That really you should refer to a PASMA Iron Assembly member whose operatives will have been through that professional training. It's training that's not available to the general public. It has to be for professional riggers. But there will be, they're being rolled out at the moment, the advanced courses which will cover some of the standard configurations, such as cantilever towers in their simplest form.
Okay, thanks. And I saw that Gary already helped Joel out there to say yes, you can go some of the advanced courses there, which is indeed correct. Now it's really interesting. This was just a question from Flippa, but I think what we need to do is just see if you can help with that, John. That's not particularly a question that need an answer straight away, but it is basically if you have maybe photo sequences of some of these more advanced things being built, and if that was available. We just need to see what we can do now, Flippa. Okay. Right, here's an interesting one. Graham Sargent. Is there any future plan for PASMA advanced training course or for the installation of chimney scaffold, or that was a narrow access scaffold? is there, Don? Well, you don't have Stuart with us, who is our training director, but...
at this moment in time, we don't have any plans to release a training course for chimney scaffolds.
Oh, that's what
there has been a bit of an issue with chimney scaffolds and in finding a safe method to assemble and dismantle them. It's not something that PASMA has yet found a solution that we're happy with. So at this moment in time, no, there's no plans to do anything with chimney scaffolds. I think they're probably something that is a thing of the past. I don't think there's something that we see much of these days.
Oh, and here Chris is asking a question, and we do get that question a lot. Do scaffolders require a PASMA card to assemble a tower? I know the answer, because I've seen them erect scaffold in my garden, and I had to tell them how to do it correctly, but that's another story.
Some of the worst mobile towers I've ever seen have been assembled by scaffolders, unfortunately. Building a mobile tower is a specialised form of scaffolding, and yes, even a scaffolder should have a PASMA card if he's going to build the tower properly.
Okay, I hope that was good. I've got one or more questions coming through. Chris, I hope that was okay. I'm going to one or two questions still. We have got a little bit of time left for that to see whether or not we can answer one or two questions of people that asked the questions during the sign up of this seminar. So the first question was, and I think that this may be directed to myself, is could the successful ladder exchange be replicated with tower to trade in old against new? And the answer is, well, actually, PASMA has been looking at this in the past. And like with so many ideas from our members, we would certainly be interested in supporting an initiative that came from the members. I think that, well, for starters, I do know that various members already do this themselves anyway. Some of them during the Tower Week, which is obviously a good moment in time because then there is a lot of focus on towers in that week. But I can't see why it wouldn't be possible for more members to get involved. And we certainly would be interested to help in any way that we can to get that going. Learning indeed from what we've learned from the ladder exchange, whether or not it is going to be, running for the period of time that the ladder exchange runs, which is like 3 months or so, or during the same period of time. I don't know how practical that would be, but yeah, those people that are interested, what I would say is email us, and we'll have a thought about that. So thanks for that question. I was able to answer, hopefully. Another question coming through here. If you have a team of 4 people building a PASMA tower, do they all need PASMA qualifications or just one of them to inspect and sign off the tower?
Everyone, you have to remember the requirements of the work at height regulations, that everyone working at height needs to be competent. So we would say that at least one of the persons involved in the build, if you like, the supervisor or the person who's actually working at height, they need to be PASMA trained. Don't forget as well that there's also a PASMA training course for people using mobile towers. So, once you've built the tower and other people go up it to carry out the work that the tower is built for, under the requirements of the regulations, they also need to be competent to work at height. So they should also be familiar and in some way may need to prove their competence to work at height using a mobile tower. In terms of the team building the tower, I would suggest that you need at least one person. They may be assisted by others, but if those others are actually going onto the tower in the process, then I'd suggest they also need to be competent in some way and PASMA trained in some way.
I think that's the definitive point, just to echo what Don said, that if they are working at height, so if you have one operative working at height, 2 or 3 others handing components from ground level, I think you could argue the case for those other three are not working at height. But if they are going to go up as part of the tower build team, then they are working at height, and they do need to prove confidence. And the most universally accepted way of proving confidence is via PASMA training and the PASMA card.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Thanks, Don. I think there is just enough time for one more question. And I think I'm going to ask this to Don. It was a question from Tom. And he asked, how can it be right to advise candidates on a course to tie in a tower when the wind reaches 25 miles an hour, when they have been told to cease work on them if the wind rises above 70 miles an hour?
I think you need to look carefully at at what's actually written in the Code of Practice. This is about planning for work, which of course is a requirement of the work at height regulations. You should be thinking about planning for those sort of wind speeds even before you built the tower, because if you know that the wind speeds are going to reach that level, you should have looked at that using weather forecasts. And if it's known that there's a possibility or a likelihood of the wind speeds reaching that level, then you should be planning to tie it in before you've actually started to build it. It's not a question of watching what happens as it goes along. You should be planning for this in advance.
Isn't the point also that by tying a tower in, we are not suggesting that you tie a tower in and then carry on working? There are two hazards. One of the guidelines is the point at which it is recommended that operatives cease working on the tower. The other is the point at which it's considered a tower should be tied in simply because it is a structure which, if not tied in a high wind, or if not dismantled, could actually present a hazard through overturning. Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant. Well, time's up, gentlemen. Rest me to thank you both again for being here and giving us such a good presentations and providing us with some of the questions and answers. Thanks, Michael. Yes, I get some thank yous from the delegates that were at the seminar. I hope that you enjoyed it too. If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to email us directly. You can do that at info@pasma.co.uk, and or you go to our website and use the information there. But thanks again very much for joining us at this very first and hopefully not the last webinar that we're going to run. And feedback would be greatly appreciated for those that attended, so that we can hopefully make these seminars or webinars even better in the future. So thank you ever so much, and hope to speak to you sometime soon again. Thanks, Don. Thanks, John.
Thank you.